Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue this morning. Now, the manufacturing industry plays a crucial role in the economy of South Africa and contributes over 10% towards the GDP of the country. Now, the industry has also experienced some challenges, and some experts are predicting an increase in the next coming 2 years within the sector. Now, this morning we're joined by Coenraad Bezuidenhout, who's the Managing Director of FTI Consulting, to talk more about the role of the industry and the upcoming Manufacturing Indaba later on this month. Remember, you can be part of our conversation by giving us a call on 011 447 1742 or 447 1620, and your comments are also welcome on our Facebook as well as our Twitter pages. Good morning to you, Coenraad, and thanks very much for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Now, let's talk on the backdrop of the latest statistics which were released on Tuesday, mentioning that the manufacturing industry fell by nearly 4% in the first quarter of 2017. Looking at these stats, what do you think are the contributing factors to the decrease?
So unfortunately, South Africa's economy is under a huge amount of pressure because of self-inflicted factors. There's obviously quite a bit of concern about political stability in South Africa. And these are things that we know about. It's in the public domain. It's mentioned by the rating agencies and so. And then, of course, while there has been recovery in our traditional export markets, these still remain under pressure. Those are markets such as the EU and the United States. And, of course, economies like China are still, finding it difficult to pick up. The thing in South Africa is that first quarter there is traditionally normally a dip in the first part of the quarter, and that those improve later on in the year. But I think going forward we will have to watch the political environment and make sure that we conduct ourselves, our country's politics in such a way that creates confidence.
Okay, so those are factors outside of the industry itself,
yes,
but they have an influence in a way. But at the same time, there's some challenges within, the manufacturing sector itself. What are some of those things, and how have they been dealt with, over the years?
Well, there has been a number. I think manufacturers still struggle quite significantly because of things such as electricity supply and basic services in some of our municipalities. There's, of course, also labour issues from time to time. But those, I think, are it's in the process of being addressed, and I think from there the confidence going forward. There's quite a bit of stability coming from the negotiations that saw the minimum wage and all of those kind of things happening, and it's moving to a place where there's a greater understanding so that the industry can do back building from the bottom up, and it can be a true industry effort rather than a business labour effort.
Okay, so another, when you go back to like the 2008 global crisis, sort of like the sector was affected, like, in a big way. The recovery process from that, and looking at the current situation, how did it affect that?
Yeah, so it's 10 years on from that. What happened there was demand collapsed in our export markets quite significantly, and there was also demand that collapsed locally in our domestic market. But we found that our African export markets buoyed South African manufacturing, for which we need to be very thankful. Of course, our economy diversified, and the relative contribution of manufacturing to the economy may have shrunk from, say, 15% or so down to about 12 or 11%. But the wonderful thing about manufacturing is that it is a link between our primary sectors such as mining and agriculture, and our tertiary sectors where banking, finance, IT and all of those kind of things happen. It creates stability in our market. It's got many multipliers. So it's a very essential part of what we do to keep the economy going here in South Africa.
Okay, so tying in those both ends that you just made an example of, creates an opportunity to create jobs, obviously, which will contribute, tremendously as well to the GDP. But that doesn't look like that's what has happened. It is a crucial factor. What are some of the things that should be done to sort of like create jobs and make sure that the contribution grows towards the GDP?
So manufacturing requires quite a complex ecosystem within which to grow and to to create these jobs. And it's also an environment that's continuously changing. There's now something called Industry 4.0, which is coming, and that is a term that encompasses the coming wave of technology, which includes things like 3D printing. It includes
nanotechnology,
the Internet of Things. And what it enables us on the one hand is to make things that we were never able to make before. But on the other hand, it means that how jobs are created by the sector is going to change significantly. Yeah. People will always be necessary to make things with their hands, but there's a lot of things that we are now going to make that you simply can't make with your hands. So we're going to need to upskill people. They need to learn how to program machines. They need to learn how to write coding. They need to learn how to design. And so therein lies a big task for us going forward.
Okay, so you obviously have to merge this emerging 4.0 technology, fourth industrial revolution going on, and the previous way of doing things. What processes are currently on to sort of like merge?
Yeah, I think if you used to think of manufacturing as a cue ball, you now need to think of it like an onion. So before we used to have very much one type of activity. Now it's going to be very many types of activity. On the rest of the continent, for instance, a lot of the manufacturing demand is going to be driven by urbanization. That means pots, pans, trellis doors, security systems, etc. Things that we can make, we pull things out of the earth and we can turn it into something else. But when we speak about automotive industry and so on, it's going to become a lot more complex. And so for that kind of activity to be supported and grown, we will have to look at how we upskill, how we get people
differently,
and how we get people to be employable straight from school.
All right, let's take a caller on the line. We've got Mpolo, I think, out in Soshanguve. Hello, Mpolo.
How are you, man?
We're good, thanks, and you?
Fine, time. Then I'm doing manufacturing here. I'm looking for the post. What I'm doing manufacturing there.
Yeah. Okay.
So what can I do, and then what kind of assessment are these people helping the small SME?
Okay. All right. Well, we'll ask that. So let's talk to that. Let's talk to how you work the industry, sort of like upskill and work closely with the SMEs like this one, particularly in a township setting.
Okay. So the wonderful thing about something like the Manufacturing Indaba is that it is an opportunity for big players and smaller players to come together with policymakers and politicians. These are people that together determine this ecosystem that we spoke about. And they're people that operate in different corners, so they don't always understand each other. It's a wonderful opportunity to do that for 2 days. That's the first thing. Second thing is for these smaller operators. Now, if you start from scratch, it's very difficult to get into manufacturing. But there's a lot of people who have drawn on what they know. I remember about 2 years ago, there was a SMME that actually exhibited at the Manufacturing Indaba. The guy did wiring. And so that's what it seems very simple, but that's what he knew, and they targeted bigger operators so that he can supply them and see if there's smaller jobs that can grow to bigger jobs and so grow his company. Offtake is a big thing for South African manufacturing. So we need government to buy, we need SOEs to buy, we need local businesses to choose to source from South Africa. If we take, for instance, something like structural steel, a lot of businesses have in the past rather gone to Chinese suppliers. They supply cheaply, but a lot of these people have found they do their big construction projects, the product arrives from China, it's the wrong specification and so on, and then when they need to go back for support, the support is not there. You buy local, you pay a little bit more, but when you want the support is there. And so your viewers there are very right. We choose to buy the imported goods because we go after price, but we don't look at the quality and the service. I think the second thing there is that we need to have fair trade and we need to have proactive trade relationships. Unfortunately, in the last decade or so, we have not pursued those proactively enough. But it's not a thing of needing to protect our market and putting up huge trade barriers. We just need to be sure that we play on a level playing field, and that is what the local chicken industry here is fighting for.
Okay, so in terms of like, okay, it's Youth Month, and you know, the Indaba is happening, and we've got like 28% almost of like unemployment in the country, and almost like 50%, close to 30-40% of that is young people. How do we make sure, how does the Indaba and the manufacturing industry incorporate young people into some of the opportunities that you guys have?
So this is where another of those areas where the various stakeholders need to get together. So young people in the first instance need to know that that life doesn't owe you anything, so you need to go out and grab what you can. And there's a lot of us that come from places where we're not connected, we don't know how, but you just need to know that you need to go and try, and hopefully from there something will happen. But then business needs to come to the party together with what government gives them. Government provides grants to help make learnerships and internships happen. And there are some companies that have already taken that on and have subsidized the hiring of young people to come into their companies. They keep these people there for 2 or so years. They don't employ all of them afterwards, but once they are done there, those guys stand a much better chance of finding employment again somewhere else.
Okay. In short, what can we expect from the Indaba, just before we go to the news?
Wonderful opportunity to meet with the politicians, with policymakers, with big business, and for big business to meet with small business. It really is a place that leads to action. It's not just talk, talk, talk.